if it really went upside down with the guarantees we had in place, we would have been wiped out. One singular decision we made in 2014 triggered this 7-year issue, and I will never make that mistake again. We finally got our shit together. We're ready to launch in May 2018 for our true sales launch and kill away a volcano erupted for the first time in 20 years. You think you can anticipate any blind spot, but they're called a blind spot for a reason. You can't anticipate a volcano erupted, and you can't anticipate a global pandemic.
Acts of God.
Acts of God, and they've happened to me twice now, and in a 3-year span.
There's nothing worse than not knowing. It upsets people. So many people, like, they hide the bad news. I think it's the number one problem out there for entrepreneurs, how they communicate. What a gift we have here today, guys. We got my dear friend, Stephen Petasky, who not only is an amazing human, we're lucky enough here in Coeur d'Alene to have him as one of these part-time residents in this community, one of the best markets in America. So we're really lucky to have him. But we just had Stephen this morning speak to our group out while we're floating on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Mm-hmm. It's really awesome. Cool little weekly mastermind we do here with all these incredible entrepreneurs in this marketplace. But I will say this, every time I'm around him, I feel like I learn so much. And it's like the energy that I absorb off Stephen, the osmosis of being near such a dynamic human, it is contagious. You're going to learn a lot today. I can't wait to share him with the world. Stephen's one of the coolest guys out there, one of the most brilliant developers in the world. And Stephen goes where all the sexy stuff is. Stephen loves pretty things. And some of his properties that exist, the ones that I've seen, they're some of the most beautiful properties in the world. I can't wait to open up that can of worms. This is a guy that's all over the world, literally, from Italy to Hawaii to Canada. Big triangle there. So this is going to be fun to unpack, to figure out how he did it. And man, this morning, did you not think, Matt, that there was so much gold that poured out of those 2.5 hours with Stephen?
Oh, yeah. I'll just foreshadow before we throw the
Please
first
do.
question out. Like, it was so relatable. Like, just 16, 17 years ago, here he is with his wife sitting down like, sweetie, let's cast a little vision.
He said with
It's
$7
like,
in the bank.
Yeah, $7 in the bank. $1,000 was big money to him just 16, 17 years ago with some purposeful.
It's incredible.
And so I know this interview, it'll be relatable to anyone in the audience, wherever you're at. And yeah, man, I'm just so grateful you're on the show. You blessed our group this morning. I had so many people afterward. They were just high and really grateful for the inspiration you dropped in their lives.
Yeah, you don't even know the buzz after that. Like, people like, oh my God, that was so good.
Yeah, they were grateful. So yeah,
thank you.
We don't charge enough.
We like to lob one of the bigger questions, Eric.
Yeah. So yesterday we just did this with Pace, and it's so cool to have someone with so much talent around, and even with a guy that's a really high profile like Pace. Stephen is not. He's so humble. Stephen's done this the old school way. He's not really built his business around a personal brand, which so often in the marketplace now you see a lot of that. Stephen's raised money the traditional way. I mean, he goes from $7, from what I heard, to $100 million. It's amazing to be able to pull the gold out of that, which we will. But even with Pace yesterday, it was so easy to talk about business. But what I think really brings life to the person is when you go to the lows, that dark place in their life. And with that situation yesterday, it shifted the whole conversation. And it gives so much more meaning when you hear the wins, knowing where the L's were. And I know that there's no journey that's not filled with losses and failure and trying times. And I just heard this the other day. Someone just told me this, and I'm trying to forgive me for not knowing, but it was profound. Someone was saying that their dad always used to say that if you're not in bed in the middle of the night with your hands in your head in your hands, not knowing what you're going to do tomorrow, then you've not really lived. Something to that effect. And that really is the entrepreneurial story, and the solving of complex problems. And again, like, it is amazing to be able to get these stories from these incredible people. I would love to see where Stephen would take this question of, take us to a low. What does that look and feel like, knowing that you're on such a high mountain right now?
Well, I appreciate it. First off, to both of you, thank you for having me. Very cool studio, by the way. This is freaking awesome. It's a great setup, and it's awesome to be at Idaho for me. Yeah. As I, in addition to being here for 9 years in the summers, I went to school, University of Idaho, 20 years ago and change. Oh, wow. But at a golf scholarship there, so there's definitely some really, awesome. So I had some history back in northern Idaho, which is what kind of brought our family back here. So I love coming down here and to see local people from Coeur d'Alene here crushing it in business, putting the city on the map, putting its entrepreneurs on the map, which I think is phenomenal. And today was a crap ton of fun speaking to your crew. They were so much energy, very, very. I learned as much from them as maybe they did from me, and probably I learned more from them. So
floating on a boat, by the way.
Yeah,
it was cool.
No, you do a
setup.
Usually the stuff's like in a boardroom at like the Best Western. You guys either pick one of the coolest resorts in the world with Hagen on or Coeur d'Alene Resort, or you float on the boat or on the ocean. By the way, thanks for picking me up on the way too.
We did. We picked him up out of Gaza.
Some boat problems, but
we'll get you home.
Yeah, well, good thing is the shuttle does run later, so I'm good now. But
either way, I got you.
I appreciate you. Yeah. Pleasure, truly. And as far as if you want to kick off from lows, got plenty of lows, as all people do. They don't talk about them that much. And I think maybe I'll kick off that to your point earlier is I don't have a profile publicly that's any of any sort of significance between LinkedIn or Instagram. And it is by choice and not by choice that I think there's two things. One, I think I lack a little bit the courage to put myself out there in a way that I know could have a positive impact in certain people's lives. But at the same point, I guess intentionally, my wife and I have had sensitivities a bit because for her, she was a 20-year broadcaster and journalist.
Yeah, wow.
So she was before Instagram was a thing, she was a very high-profile person in Canada and lived through, so I lived through vicariously that journey of people coming up in the restaurants and autographs and pictures and humbling. Like, it's incredible. Like, it's a phenomenal thing. I feel like I've actually lived it already. Yeah. And my wife and I made a kind of conscious decision. She still is out there and has a podcast and because that's really her space, her energy, and she's actually phenomenal at it. For me personally, I feel like I've lived vicariously through her for so long that I just I've never felt totally compelled and called to put myself out there in that way. And I know you'd say, Eric and Matt and Ed and other people would say you're doing a disservice to people that could be learning. And I frankly probably am, but I feel like at least this point in my journey, not to say it would not change as time goes on, we're trying to build a meaningful, impactful business in a somewhat anonymous way. And it's gone well for us. I mean, the story in the playbook has gone well despite the ups and downs. So just a little bit of explanation why when someone on the listening to this goes to my Instagram account and sees me fishing with my family a year ago, and that's about the last post. It's not that we don't have a life; it's just that we keep certain things private at this point. So,
no, I respect that. That's become rare and rare. So,
Anyway, I'm not sure it's right or wrong. It's what's right for us at this point.
There's no right or wrong here.
Being on a podcast for me is super fun though because I get a chance to have more of a conversation and in an environment with good friends and people I trust to share about our journey. So, I don't mind going low first because like any entrepreneur, it's generally people see the good things. And they don't necessarily see the bad things. And really, when they go bad, how bad could they have been? And because you don't know until you get through them. So for me, it would have been 2015. So just to give the context of the history of our company, started in 2007. And like you said, $7 in the bank. But basically, to not hyperbole it, is we had $0 really saved, very, very, very small amount. And we had a house with a mortgage on it. And that's kind of where we started point. My wife and I both had careers and had a good income. Yeah. And I was an entrepreneur at the time in a business trying to build equity, but have not yet necessarily, extracted that equity. But we didn't have financial resources to go and necessarily just start something from scratch. So you had to bootstrap it in those early stages. And we bootstrapped it and we had a great, my parents were amazing to us and our extended family and friends that helped us kick this thing off. And I'll cover that journey later, but that was, I guess, 2007. We're in 2023. Right in the middle of this, between 2015 to 17, was for sure the low. And that's when we took on a new project in the company. And it was basically shifting from kind of our vacation rental management business and our co-ownership business, kind of a fractionalized luxury home business, to development. And we took on 3 projects in that time. And again, if you're going to start something, why not just start one? But instead we start 3 in 3 different parts of the world. So Tuscany, California, and Hawaii, which basically Hawaii is America, but it almost acts as its own country and jurisdiction in terms of how the rules and stuff work.
Sure.
And we did that not randomly throwing darts on the board, but because we had connections on those markets, we felt we had a unique edge, and we were trying to solve. We'll talk a lot about solving problems, and that's all entrepreneurship is we felt there was a problem to be solved in each of those markets. In Hawaii, the concept of the problem we were trying to solve is to create a nightly rental-friendly community, because a lot of nightly Airbnb had started, and there's rules and regulations that were coming down within all these vacation destinations. And our problem we were trying to solve is to create a community that's welcoming of short-term rentals and welcoming of clubs within our industry. And there's some big groups in that called Exclusive Resorts and Inspirato, and they sometimes had struggles getting into some of these communities. So the thesis in 2014 which proved out to be completely sound in 2021 by the time it got done, much longer than you could expect. I mean, 7 years to build 17 homes. It was very, very challenging. It was in the middle of it. Thesis was correct. The business plan was lined up great. We had raised the capital. We had a group of dedicated investors, which I'm still incredibly grateful for, even though financially it was not good. It was very, very difficult. And there was a compounding effect between 2015 and 18. And my deepest lows, I probably have multiple in that 3 years time. Like I've never seen, my wife, my kids never see me that like defeated, and it's defeated on a repeated basis, throat punching, not for a week or a month or a year, but years. And it really came to a head. Yeah. It really got resolved in 2021. That's when we wound it up, or we got it finished. Now I'll fast forward to the good news: world-class community, award-winning, very happy owners. They've all increased in value. Like it's a phenomenal community, but the middle part of getting things done was absolutely almost a tragedy. We had two components, which created great lessons learned. Is like, and I had like almost, I don't want to say PTSD to make light of it, but like the when I think back in that moment, it's like, how the hell am I actually going to get myself out of this? And the compound, I had like a growth in my neck, and I wasn't sleeping, and it was like I was getting this ultrasound in my neck to see what was going on. They're like, we don't know why your lymph nodes are so inflamed, and thinking it's cancer, and it was just like all these stress. Manifesting itself through these symptoms, which I didn't quite realize because I was working 18 hours a day to try to solve these problems, in addition to running the other side of the business, which we had great management in place for. And the whole thing was, if it really went upside down with the guarantees we had in place, we would have been wiped out. It's just a simple mathematical equation. We owed more, and there was a risk that we could have owed more than the project was worth. Yeah. And in the event that happened, personal guarantees would have kicked in, and me and frankly my parents, who helped backstop some of the thing, would have been just about wiped out. So that's
worst fear.
It is the worst fear ever. Oh. And as I shared a little early in the mastermind, it was a very difficult time. I went through multiple points of anxiety during that time.
Like actual panic attacks.
Like stress, to the point
to that level.
The level of stress was kind of unbearable, and I never really knew what it was because I wasn't seeing a doctor for the stress. I was seeing a doctor for the physical symptoms that was rising of some of this, and probably to my fault, I should have. But it's like you're just in the moment, and you're just solving these problems one at a time to get over these humps and these hurdles. Yeah. And at the end of the day, when I would have these stressful moments, you get anxious, and when you're anxious, is that I feel it's paralyzing. When you're in a moment of anxiety, and this is a good lesson for any entrepreneurs or someone listening, even anxiety with family, anxious people have a tough time functioning, and I don't. They freeze. So now you can't make any progress towards solving what it is. But fear can be actually a good motivator, because if I'm just the fear of loss of something, when you put it in context to the world or your situation, whatever it may be, you're like, oh, what's the worst that could happen to me? And then we went through this. I'm wiped out financially. Obviously, I'm going to have a group of investors that are going to see me die in this mountain. They may or may never invest with me again. But they're going to, no matter what, if we're going down, I'm like going down with the ship. This is what it's going to, it's where we're going to get this thing done, or we're going to die trying. And playing the long game is a whole separate topic we can come back to. But when I shifted that for the fear of that, I'm like, okay, you know what? That's not so bad. I could probably get a loan. I could restart. I'm only 37 years old. I've got lots of energy. We have good ideas. We have another business that's still doing okay. And I think we could get out of this. And all of a sudden I went from a moment of anxiety where I was locked and frozen to problem solving for year after year until we all got that son of a bitch done. Yeah. And that was a greater motivator to realize that the worst isn't that bad. Yeah. The worst would be is I have a stress attack and I have a freaking heart attack, or I developed some form of stress-induced cancer. Like I still have my health, at least I had some issues at the time. And we worked our way through it. And, fortunately at the end, while financially it wasn't a success, we created a lot of success for the community, for the homeowners, the trades. We paid all our bills. We paid the bank. You learned a
shit ton.
And I had the absolute best learning of my life that one singular decision we made in 2014 triggered this 7-year issue. And I will never make that mistake again. Yeah. And so many of investors, even though we had a financial kick in the pants, punch in the throat, they're like, I'm investing with you again because you now have done something it's caused you the most painful financial mistake of your life, and you're never going to make that mistake again.
They know you have humility.
And they also know I'm going to play the long game. I'm going to get it done.
So were you transparent with your investors through this whole process?
So you know what? We missed the boat, and this is part of our learning. We probably held on to the bad news too long before we shared it. Yeah. And not to say that we weren't lacking transparency, but we were probably still feeling like we could save these elements. And because not that we couldn't, we actually were. Like we had a white knight investor. We thought it was all done. They backed out the 11th hour. We had a bank. They backed out 11th hour.
I get it.
So we kept feeling like we were almost there. And we would say, hey, we are having troubles with financing the project. And then the catalyst at the end of the day, which is one decision, basically not having the appropriate backup financially in 2014. We had one path to success and one path only.
Wow.
And when
was that the lesson, by the way?
The biggest lesson. You know what?
Okay. I was going to ask you about it.
No. The biggest lesson at the end of the day, the second component of it was Big Island. We finally got our shit together. We're ready to launch in May 2018 for our true sales launch. So we had our pre-sales and then our next launch. And Kilauea volcano erupted for the first time in 20 years. So there's one in our thing, and legitimately.
That's the story of entrepreneurship right there. The volcano went off.
But and it's like, okay, is that like a metaphor for something? No, that motherfucker actually went off. And it shut down the island basically for a year. Damn. And it was hard on us. It was hard on I have a lot of friends in tourism and hospitality where hotels were. Occupancies went to next to nothing. Yeah. CNN was blowing this up like people running from their homes.
There's CNN.
No, it erupted and like 8 people walked from their homes and sadly their homes were lost, but made it seem on a complete other side of the island. And so that basically shut down sales. Now our biggest learning was how we properly build the financial aspect in a way that you have multiple paths of financial outs. So it's number one. And then number two is you can anticipate, you think you can anticipate any blind spot, but they're called a blind spot for a reason. Yeah. You can't anticipate a volcano erupted, and you can't anticipate a global pandemic.
Acts of God.
Acts of God. And they've happened to me twice now. And in a 2-year span between May 2018 and March 2022 or 20. When would have COVID? Freaking COVID. 2020.
2020.
Yeah. 2020. My 40th birthday is March 15th, 2020.
Yeah.
I just finishing 75 hard. And on my 75th day, it was my 40th birthday, and it was the day the world shut down.
Oh, wow.
So that's a whole nother story. But in any event, it's so anyway, that's a long answer to a short question, but it brings back memories that I will never want to relive, and frankly, I will never relive. I'm more prepared now for blind spots than I ever have been.
Expect the unexpected.
Expect the unexpected, yes. And now we built our business around almost like what is the worst case scenario? Aliens land in Hawaii and they take over our project. How would we resolve such a situation? And then we run through scenarios. Exactly. So in any event, that's how we've greatest learning in my life. And I think
do you make that part of a deck now? Do you run through the negative scenarios, show the solutions for how you might handle all those? Is that actually part of how you now communicate to investors as you build your funds and continue to grow?
That's right. And our going back to your question about we communicate, at that point we were communicating so frequently. Webinars, people wanted face-to-face. It was constant. Yeah. And that formed the basis in our whole second half of our investor communications. We have an extremely, extremely robust communication structure.
It's so good.
Yeah. And it's good news or bad news, frankly, is our investors want to help us solve problems.
Yep.
So if they feel left in the dark, how can they solve a problem with you?
I think it's the number one problem out there for entrepreneurs. It may be this, how they communicate. So many people, like they hide the bad news. And there's nothing worse than not knowing. Yeah. It upsets people in ways when you go dark on someone, it's the worst. But if you're honest, you're upfront, but you still have a good spirit and good energy, and you're agile, and you're looking for solutions. So often the answer would have come to you through someone else if you had the courage to tell the truth and put it on the table and say, let's figure this out together. But instead, that fear traps you as you look for all these alternative solutions to try to soften the blow a little bit.
Good point.
And you lose the ability to have resources that may have just come to you. Like I realize now that when you go dark on someone, it is a deadly sin.
There's a certain dictum, at a deep level, but you dropped a gem related to this about communication. The dictum is just be truthful at all times, no matter what. If you just live your life that way,
even if
it might be vulnerable,
not always great.
Yeah, but
it's better just to live by that.
And you said something, a gem for our group earlier. I'd love to hear you unpack that more. I caught the gem, but it was just like you almost preemptively go through all the risk and worst case scenarios with any potential investor in a project. And that
It's part of the
actually
pitch.
that builds more as part of the pitch. Like, hey, you want to invest
That's
with
the
me,
trust
but here's the
builder.
10 dragons that we're looking at.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you found that builds more trust than
I
elaborate on that.
like
That was
salesmen like that.
and
by the way.
that goes back to that deeper thing. Like I think the human nature in that is like people are like, this man is truthful.
Yeah, we got
or these people are. So say more about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think we've always, and I look back to even pitch decks we started in 2007, we'd always share risks. And we kind of share, but we'd share like 2 risks. And then one deck we'd share like 5 risks. Now we spend more time in some of the decks talking about the risks than we do the actual rewards.
Yeah.
Because it is we analyze them internally because we've been now hurt by risks that were our blind
eyes to
spot.
see, yeah.
Exactly. So now we can say, okay, well, these are the types of things that could happen. Here's how we would resolve it. And we can't think of everything, but here's the most common components that can affect the returns or the risk of actually being built. Like Mexico, for example, we have a really exciting project in Mexico, a Marriott autograph collection. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal, but it's slower to progress than we would have liked because the contractors had some challenges. Yeah. And so we've just been deadly honest with the group. And I think there's a component of honesty I want to touch on. We have never, ever been dishonest, but we haven't always shared as robust of the current situation. And that I would say up till 2017. And not that, like, we're like, not everyone wants to hear all the details,
Sure.
like they're
It's not out of ill will.
Yeah, it's just like we're like, do they really want to hear that we lost an employee about this or that? And and
There's some discretion.
It's an omission. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
They've hired us to be the manager, and our job is to manage, not to air everything. But on the flip side, now we shifted to say, let's over communicate. We'll just store it all in a data room for investors to access at any time. Because I never want anyone coming back to me to say, Steve, you never told me that. I'm like, actually, no, we did tell you that.
Right.
And I told you so, but as we've had it documented that we've shared, we had this challenge. It was something we were aware of. Here's how we're working through it, and here's how you can help. Yeah. And then someone's like, oh yeah,
that's a well-run machine right there. Period.
And we have a full-time communications person. Their only job is
you're in the industry, so you should know that's not as common as it should be. You're already separating yourself from the herd just by setting up systems and processes and infrastructure built around disclosure. Yeah. And what I love about what he said, and there's so many gold nuggets, you guys got to just read between the lines here, is that when you set yourself up and make a sale after you've really highlighted all the downside flaws in a unique way, it really makes taking their money much more comfortable on your part. It just must, because I'm not overhyping the highs and gleaming right past the lows. Yeah. I'm sitting in this and basking in these lows for a minute, building that rapport and that trust in this part of the game. And then when they still say yes to invest in you, it just must be such a more comfortable road to developing a future relationship and starting a project together than if I only did the glorious part. Yeah. That's an easy way to sell. Yeah. When you just talk about all the pros of something, and you just because you're so trying to get that dollar, think about this. You're trying to get someone's money out of their pocket. Like at the end of the day, like raising capital is an art form, and it's crucial for businesses to go to the next level. It is. Even Pace Morb yesterday, his number one thing he thinks a human should learn how to do is raise capital. That's again, this coming from like a legend, but with this whole point that I'm talking about right here, people skip right past these topics, this disclosure when things are going bad, bringing out the truth, and sitting in the lows. But after all the losses, this is what you've learned after all the stress. I think anybody could apply this to any part of their business, no matter how small it is, and instantly see like peace of mind in their approach to anything. Like that to me seems like a comfortable way to operate where you're not looking over your shoulder as much.
Well, it's so fun. We like talking about it now because, especially in our business, we're very blessed, but our business is very cool things. Like no other way to put it. We restore villas in Italy.
Give the listener, I don't want to take it for granted, give the listener context for your business.
Yeah,
there we go.
Like the story, the backstory, because what you do is really, like Eric says, sexy or beautiful. It's really very compelling.
Sexy. No, okay, thank you. So and to close the loop on that part, it's easy to sell the sexiness, but at the end of the day,
there you go.
Especially if you're trying to create like a disruptive space or do something unique or solve a problem that hasn't been solved, there's going to be bumps on the road. Yeah. So I just wanted to disclose all those bumps. And also now I can be very picky on investors when before I couldn't, as picky rather. And I've had investors that have created problems, and I've had investors that help solve problems and a lot that are neutral, and they're cool with it. But I now go over the top on that side, and it does build trust and rapport. It also helps me understand. I can ask the investor, who now I can curate before it was a little bit different. if you were to invest with us and I had this difficult situation like I had in Hawaii or whatever, how would you help me solve this problem? Some people would say, well, it's totally on you and good luck, and I'll sue you if you lose my money. And then you're like, okay, well, you're not going to be investing in this project. Alternatively, it's like, oh, well, I got capital sources and I got friends that could help out. And actually, I'm a contractor by trade. I could probably, amazing. Because if as a lesson for those raising capital, if you can find someone, if you can pick your group that can help you solve those problems, you're just miles and miles faster to get to your destination.
Sure.
And so in any event, so now fortunately we're in a place, that's why we do it.
Yeah.
Now, going back in history and the whole thing, and I'll share the same story I shared the mastermind, how the 2007 kicked off, and I'll just give little highlights, and you can let me know if you want to go deeper. But 2007, as I mentioned, we were at our careers, and they were going well, but we were looking for something with a bit more purpose. And not purpose is probably the right word, passion. Something we really had a deep passion about, and our passion was travel. And my wife and I were pregnant with her, my wife rather was pregnant with her first, and we were very, very excited. And we had friends that were telling us to say, oh, sucks to be you. Travel's done now for you guys. Only for like 10, 15 years, maybe until they go to college. Like 18 years of no travel. Yeah. And then they would go on to say, oh, you can't take a kid on an airplane. Oh, this happened. Or you can't stay in a hotel. And all these things were like, God, that's kind of sound shitty. Like, should we have had a baby? Like, and of course, you're thinking, well, most people either do one or two things. You just say, I'm going to resort to shittier travel, or I'm not going to travel. We didn't want to compromise what we were doing. Our whole life and romance and the idea of coming together was based around seeing exotic places, doing cool things with each other. And we did not want that to stop. And we go down the road of like a strong couple is like the true foundation for a strong family. If mom and dad are strong, kids are going to be strong. Yeah. It's phenomenal. And I'm very blessed to have an amazing, amazing wife. And we are super deeply connected, and we work very, very hard at to ensure we stay that way and move forward. So anyhow, we looked at the options. 2000, this would have been end of 06, early 07. Son was born in February 07. And we said, okay, 3 options. Go to hotels. Hotels are not good with babies. You can have a glass of wine on the patio or in the bathroom. There's no way to be romantic. It just wasn't like, it sucks with babies. You can get multiple rooms, put your baby in the closet, but it doesn't quite work with a little one. So we scrapped hotels, that's out. Unless you can spend $2,000 a night and get like a villa at a hotel, but we didn't have that type of money. Number 2 was to rent homes, but renting homes created inconsistency. And this is actually important. We get maybe at the very end, I'll tell you what our newest endeavor is. I think this would be a good thing for people to hear. But we wanted familiarity on how our vacation experiences were, because I don't want to show up on Vrbo and see a picture of a pool in 07, and then the pool is actually not filled up when I get there, or it's green, or the hot tub doesn't work, or the linens are all pilled, and the taps are calcified, and it's just a crappy experience. You spend a lot of money only to have a poor experience. It actually takes away versus adding joy. So, okay, we like rental for variety. We don't like it for inconsistency. Final bucket is you buy your own home. We didn't have the money for it. We had just a little bit saved up, or we could take a second mortgage on our house to extract a bit of equity. But we couldn't afford anything of what we wanted to do.
Sure.
So then we ended up buying, we said, what if we pulled together 15 friends and family? We all contribute a bit of cash, a couple $100,000 each. And we'd have to do that through another mortgage on our house, and we'd have others that would have cash. And let's go buy 3 homes, effectively fractional ownership. Not a novel concept, but how we did it was a bit unique. And we ended up going to 18 friends and family, and my parents invested, and we invested in 16 others. And we bought 3 homes. We bought a condo in Maui, a house in Phoenix, and a lake property in just north of here. And
was that actually an LLC that you formed to bring that money together?
Exactly.
Was that Luxus?
That was the original version of Luxus. Okay, was that?
Cool,
that's the name. Everything was founded on that specific those 3 property concept. And Luxus, for the benefit of the listeners, is a Latin word for luxury. So for us, $1 million house was luxury. That may not be the definition of luxury in the world.
But this is 2007.
Yeah. $1 million went a long way. We got some cool houses.
Sure.
And so we started Luxus. We didn't have any employees. We didn't have an office. So you built the structure, the infrastructure, the team from scratch.
Yeah, right before the market crashed. Good timing.
Yeah, exactly. Then so those properties all went down. Well, the good thing is we bought them with cash. We got them, and people started traveling. So the concept was
that's part of the thing. They all get access.
They get access. So think of it like the timeshare is a dirty word, because timeshare, you don't actually own anything. You own a deeded interest in time, not bricks and mortar. The version of structure we use is limited partnership. So in the U.S., you use your limited partnership or LLC. LLCs, there's not a version of that in Canada. So limited partnerships is the primary vehicle we raise capital under. Very common structure. General partner looks after everything, and then a bunch of limited partners, similar to like an LLC. And we raised capital that way. But those people had a couple of vacations and they told some friends and told friends. And it snowballed very, very quickly. And this is all of a sudden where my wife leaves her career and I exit the other family business. And all of a sudden we end up raising, we got to about a valuation of the real estate we held, almost $100 million in 7 years. We bought 50 properties. So the average price point was $2 million a home.
Sure. What were you looking for in your properties? Was there a common theme? Was it near water? Would it have to
You know what? We had 4 buckets. We had beach, golf, mountains and lakes, and city and urban. And so urban and culture rather. And so simple as that. Beach was Cabo and Hawaii, and golf was Palm Springs and thing. And we had like New York and Las Vegas, and then ski properties, like mostly interior British Columbia, because that was close to us for Western Canada. And so we had this amazing. All of a sudden, 2014 rolls around, and we're like, wow, like we've got
that's incredible.
50 properties. We're doing thousands of vacations a year, $100 million of assets under management, all from basically $200,000 at a time.
Incredible.
Yeah. There's no big checks because there's no purpose for someone to write $1 million check because they're just getting a fraction of a home.
Sure.
So they get a certain amount of
Was
time.
that hard to keep all that organized in the early days, figuring out like organically how to keep track of all this? I don't know how the dividends are going out or what the returns look like. But I'm just curious, as you're organizing this organically, how does that look?
You know what? And it's funny, we're still going through it. And we do have a very, very good system, I can say, purely through trial and error. There was no playbook.
The way it works.
Yeah. You know what? In certain businesses, you buy a car dealership, there's an exact template on how to buy a car dealership, the software you should use, how you get the loans, all these various things. In our business, we were unique because we weren't renting the homes out. And we weren't a single family homeowner.
Yeah, so this wasn't for the general public.
Correct.
This was only for owners within the group, in the fund, if you will.
Yeah, it's basically like a private club fund.
And so does that pencil cash flow?
No, because
interesting.
Think of it like a club. Is that your value you'd receive out of this? And here's the interesting thing: we're actually literally on Saturday shutting down the very end of this iteration. So we'll come to what the next version of it is.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for it, but the concept at the time, doing it for 16 years, is we buy the real estate with cash. There's no debt. So we don't need cash flow to fund any sort of interest or principal payments. You pay the dues. So just like a club, there's a dues to operate a golf course, is you are going to pay the dues associated with to operate that, and you pay us a management fee. And then your dividend is 2 components, or your financial thing is 2. Capital appreciation, presumably over time, real estate goes up, and thereby your $100,000 investment is now worth $120,000.
Is it based on time you bought it? Because if say the property is already existing, does this money that goes in this fund attach to all 50 properties?
Attaches to all, but we revalue it every year.
Oh, interesting. So, but does your starting point go back? It doesn't go back to the original purchase price. It goes from your entry point of what that property might have been.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that must be hard. Every investment that comes in, you have to establish a real-time price point for evaluation, or how does that?
It's a great question, but the answer is we do it annually. And even though the market, unless the market may change materially within that time period, we may accelerate a second valuation. But people know they're buying an evaluation that could be a week, a month, or a year.
Okay.
And they look at the last valuation and they're like, it's close enough. Because unlike a day trader where things are trading by the minute, it just wasn't the nature of our model.
So does one investor coming in, putting in, does that person have access to, depending on time of year when it's open or available, all the properties around the world?
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So even though you invest, let's say the fund's worth $30 million. We have 3 funds that basically call it $30 million each. It's not quite the right math, but close. And I put in, $150,000. So I own 0.5% of that fund. That means I get a certain time allocation. Say you work out, you get 4 weeks of time, but now I am a 0.5% owner in a $30 million fund, and I have access to the 30 properties in that fund, proportionally the same access as everyone else. And I might have bought it at a higher valuation or lower valuation based on the guy who bought him 5 years ago.
Sure.
And maybe it's actually good to tell the story. I'm leaving this business, everyone, and if this is still a great business, we're in a different evolution in our company cycle that we're looking to do something bigger. But this business absolutely still makes sense, and a singular entrepreneur could take exactly what I'm telling you right now and do the exact same thing today. And it can be a successful business over a period of time, and you get to travel and do very cool things. And it's very, we have now created the playbook along with others in the industry that you can just rip off and duplicate. We didn't have anyone to rip it off from. Yeah. So if this is anyone listening says, that sounds amazing. Yeah. I've got 10 or 15 friends and family. Let's go buy 3 homes together. Just rip off what I'm telling you right now.
If someone wants out, how does that work?
So we have one more tip for the group, fixed horizon events. Every 10 years, there's an automatic full liquidation of the portfolio or a redemption cycle where we can redeem people at market value. So you're basically,
How do you do that?
you're locked in for a 10-year time period, but you can leave at any time if you find a private buyer. So let's say I've got 150 grand invested. This isn't my thing anymore. I've moved out of the country. I can't use it. We have to have a system the same way as a golf club has a system. Someone wants to sell and someone wants to buy. We churn the people through that way.
Yeah.
And there's an extra fee if you leave early, small, like 6%, like selling a piece of real estate. But at the end of the day, you're really thinking as a 10-year vision with an optional exit period that you may sell at what you put into it, more or less, because in a private transaction, we don't create a secondary market, but there often is because the funds cap out at a certain dollar amount, and presumably someone still wants to come into that fund and they need to buy an exiting member, just like a golf club that's full. That's exactly the same. That part's not novel. We got to rip that part off from the club industry.
Is there a chance for that person to profit?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because if the person coming in says, I'll pay you a profit because I just want to get in and start traveling for the last 5 years of this fund. There's 31 homes or 30 homes in this fund. I don't have the risk you took back in 2007 when there was 3 homes.
Yeah.
Steve team has built the company up. Now I get to enjoy. So I'll pay you an extra 10 grand for your share. Person's like, I'll take it. I'm moving on anyway. I'm moving to whatever, Europe, and I can't use it anymore. So
Awesome. That's
so
interesting.
So super neat concepts, and we're very proud of. So proud of that. It's very hard right now as we're exiting and winding down the whole business, and there's lots of reasons for it.
Does that mean you're going to sell everything in the end?
We're selling everything. So on this Saturday we have our last 25 properties we're putting up for sale, and we're just even though I just had a text on the way in, our first offers are
Are
rolling
you
in.
sad at all?
Super sad.
Bittersweet?
It's a very bittersweet time.
Did you spend time at all these properties?
Or
all your favorite ones? I mean,
I eventually we built a team, and I would always buy, but I didn't necessarily do the setup anymore. At the beginning, like any entrepreneurial endeavor, you do everything. You're putting the paint on the walls and you're laundering the sheets. Now we have an amazing setup team that goes and they're freaking dialed. They label where the wine craft goes, and it's super, super good. So yes, I've seen all the properties at some point, and we had favorites that we travel to because we were owners as well. So that's how we get our time. And so maybe just fast forward because it is a great concept and it triggers a lot of interest. And there's a reason why we're still leaving the business, which is interesting enough. But quickly in between that, just to share for the audience, we've now gotten the development space, and we're working with, I won't get in all the details. We obviously shared the lows with the Hawaii project. We have an office in Siena, Tuscany, and an office in New York, which is really cool. It's kind of neat to say when I say it out loud because, I mean...
Tuscany in New York.
Yeah, like it's... and there's actually not like fake. It's like bunch of people working there that are awesome. It's like they're you can walk into the office in Tuscany and Siena and be like, oh, this is like a Luxus property. It's very proud. I say it nonchalant. Trust me, I pinch myself every day. I'm incredibly blessed and grateful that we're able to build what we built. Yeah. And we have amazing. You can only do this with amazing people, and we have amazing people that work for us and with me as partners. So those offices run different functions of the business. Canada runs the global rental portfolio. New York runs the development portfolio, and then they run also the Italian restoration portfolio. Yeah. So anyway, we did these projects. Some had success, some obviously had some struggles, and now we're able to find our way into a place where we're working for brands. So we're working for Marriott, building a Marriott autograph collection, and then also Four Seasons, which for us is still and this is all public stuff. You can go to the Four Seasons website and look up Four Seasons Private Residences Las Vegas. Yeah. And it's going to be
it's like $1 billion project.
It's a $1 billion project, and we have obviously lots of partners in on this. It's certainly way bigger than my my balance sheet can handle by many zeros. But we have we and our JV partner were the ones that assembled the entire deal, got it entitled, brought on Four Seasons.
How many years?
It took us December 2020 through till May 2022, so 2 full years of entitlements, which is fast. If you were in California,
for sure.
And for a place like Vegas, they're a little quicker, but 2 years.
I know the inner workings of, so I can't wait for you to share with the audience because entitlements are something that it really there's so much there if you have eyes to see and you have the patience and you have the wherewithal to put some of these deals together where you can take something and transform it into something. But in this case, in this entitlement case in Las Vegas, this was impossible. And you probably hear that a lot in many entitlement cases. Someone thinks something's impossible. And then there's guys like Stephen who say, no, it's not. Maybe what if? Yeah. And they have the courage to pursue it. Oftentimes with entitlements, you're going to tie up massive resources for long periods of time with no pathway to exit that's seeable for many times for years. all on a hunch or a gut feeling, or hopefully there's some data that starts supporting your feeling in your gut. But a lot of times I think it starts as that feeling is like, we can work through this somehow. We'll find a way.
Before we dive in, and I want to dive into the
It's a cool
entitlements,
story.
but the natural optimism you're reflecting back to Stephen, and
yeah.
which has been reflected back to him by a lot
Contagious.
of people. Yeah, and I want you to elaborate on that. If there's a backstory, or where do you get, like, by nature, you mentioned earlier, I think you used, like, I really do have a rose-colored lens. I see I'm naturally, what's the story behind this temperamental, attitudinal nature of yours?
Yeah, thanks. I definitely am a glass half full guy, and even in the toughest of times, I don't know. I feel, there's a path out, and I'm already, I tell you, I don't think I've ever shared this, and I know we discussed it but I didn't tell you what it was, but wasn't necessarily comfortable sharing it, but I'm very proud of it, so I'll share it. When I was born, my grandfather, his was Stephen as well, so I'm his namesake, was 48 when he had my dad. So he was quite older when my dad had me. My parents had me as a teenager, so there's the other complete side.
Yeah,
I love my parents. They're still together. They're incredible. I have a wonderful marriage that I admire. And
they're not much older than you.
But we're like best buds because we're only 17, 18 years apart from one another.
Yeah, it's really cool. I love it.
So two different paradox where my grandpa was 48 when he had my dad, and then my dad was 18 when he had me.
Yeah.
And but I got the chance to be very close to my dad, but my grandfather was already at a later stage in life.
Yeah.
And I was very young. And I'd see my grandfather walk around with a bit of a limp, and I didn't quite know what it meant in the scoop when you're 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. I was the oldest grandchild, so I became just naturally the closest with my grandfather, Stephen. When I 4 or 5 finally understood what it was, he had 2 prosthetic legs, one below the knee and one above the knee. And you can imagine this is, 85, when I'm, thing. Eventually, you start to understand the story and what happened. And I was fortunate when he passed away when I was 12 or 13. But I was at a point where I really understood his life very well because the pure quantity of time I got a chance to spend with him and my just natural curiosity. He lost his things, and he was a Ukrainian immigrant. His family was, and they were he was in a farming accident. Like farms were freaking savage back then, like so bad. And his dad, no one knows the whole story, rode over him with a oxen-driven, plow and cut off both his legs at 4 or 5 years old.
Damn.
It's like
heartbreaking.
I say it a lot. I can't even wrap my head around what it. First off, that he survived.
Especially in those days.
Yeah, in those days, it was like 2 days. They took him to the local doctor came in, and it was like 2 days by a horse-driven buggy. This is 1914 to get to the nearest hospital.
Poor kid.
The trauma and everything that should have messed him up for life, physically disabled him for life, and put him on a path to whatever. Drugs, alcohol, not certainly a life that he lived.
Yeah.
So many things should have gone his not the right way for him. So fast forward, I now get a chance to have a relationship with him, which is amazing.
Gift. What a gift.
The ultimate gift. And the ultimate of the gift of gifts was understanding 2 things. So first off, in addition, as a young child, my grandmother was in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, interesting. I got 2 wooden legs and someone in a wheelchair. So now I want to know that story. So it's like kind of love story that you can't even make this shit up. So my grandfather fell in love with my grandmother, and my grandmother was like the teacher and the brightest of the family. It's another farming family of like 6 or 8 girls, I think. Can't remember the number. And they were saying, you should not marry Stephen. He's a cripple. You'll be pushing him around in a wheelchair. It's crazy. You can get any man you want. She's like, I'm in love with Stephen. Yeah. And so she chose to marry him. And I don't know the whole story. I've heard differing stories from family that she was actually disowned for a while, and because the family just lost respect for her, or whatever. And they had in the time before she passed had reconnected. Yeah. Well, sure enough, at 45, I'll be off by like maybe 5 years. She gets severe rheumatoid arthritis, and she's bound to a wheelchair the rest of her life.
Oh, wow.
So now it's my grandfather with wooden legs pushing around my grandmother and with rheumatoid arthritis she would have been about 50 or 55. So my parents, my father, was brought up his entire life with prosthetic father and his mom in a wheelchair. And my entire childhood with them was the same. So every time, I think we get back, it's a long story, we get grounded in it. And I remember, I can tell the story a little easier without getting emotional with it as much. But I said, Grandpa, do you feel like, I can't remember what I said when I was 12, but how do you do it? Or do you feel shitty about it? And he said, Stephen, this is the best thing that could have happened to me. And I'm like, I didn't quite process what that meant at 12, and to the point where I'm 43 and I understand what he means. I'm like, well, why? He goes, if you didn't cut my legs off I never would have been on the path I am today. I never would have met your grandmother. I never would have got a successful career in insurance. I never would have got a chance to go to school. I would have been on that farm the rest of my life and been a farmer. Not that that's a life not to be proud of.
You might not even be here.
I wouldn't even be here. It's a certainty. And there's obviously a trajectory in life, but his trajectory was the farm. 5 years after he lost his legs, 2 of his brothers died in a farming accident to this farm. Like, I don't know what's going on this freaking farm, but it was I mean, how many more of these
Tough days.
happened? Tough days back in the early 1900s.
Yeah.
So at that moment in my life, and I can literally tie it all back to them because I was conscious at 12 and I have a deep understanding of where I was in my journey at that time in terms of, I understood what he was sharing with me.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, how can I ever fucking be mad? Like that was, and I get upset, I get frustrated like anything else, but I'm like, this guy had it so freaking hard. This isn't like some guy like telling their story on the stage and I don't really know them and they're 8 degrees removed. This is my grandfather who I'm named after.
That's cool.
Who's survived, greatest successful career, raised an amazing family, had this disability of both him and my grandmother, and they did fucking great.
And you witness his cheerfulness day to day.
Constantly. They were never in a bad mood. Ever. So I'm like, oh, my boat's not working. F these guys in my boat. It's like, what? We are so entitled and privileged now.
Yeah.
It's true.
And it's okay to be privileged, but to be grateful and blessed for what you have.
No matter the circumstances.
Since the moment I met Stephen,
so that's where it came from. Thanks for asking.
I don't know what it was,
Story.
a year ago, the first thing, whenever that was, the first thing that I noticed was his energy. For me, I love being around people with that kind of energy. I'm just drawn to it. But I do find that you ask that question, it's so easy to have brushed it off. It's like, oh, I was born this way, or, I'm just a happy-go-lucky guy. But, I find oftentimes with people that I admire, look up to, that have a great emotional stability, they have a great aura, good energy, that they attach meaning to everything. They find a story that that is always embedded in the why. They can connect a negative emotion or fear to something else that gets them out of their own way. It's not like they're immune to it. I always thought, or you must be a superhero. Like, no, I feel the same fear you do. I can feel the same frustration or anxiety, but I have a system and a process that quickly gets me out of my own way, and we start trying to problem solve, or we start being optimistic to look for the solution. Where's the silver lining? And that is something I think people can learn, and it's a superpower of the people that do it really well. They'd always get good outcomes. Yeah. It's oftentimes because they deal with failure and bad emotions correctly. They'll look at them as opportunity. Again, opportunities everywhere. And sometimes for me, I've realized, even with our retail businesses over the years, sometimes the best relationships we developed started from the worst of circumstances. Our guys screwed up, person's pissed off, they're calling, we dropped the ball, we look like idiots, and my ability to recognize that as an opportunity to step in, and through the mending of that problem creates respect, admiration, trust, connection, and now we're best friends, and we take that relationship to new heights. That happens more often than not, but you have to have eyes to see. You can't write it off the person off as, and you hear employees too, like, oh, that lady's a crackhead, or whatever. She's such a fucking bitch. Like, you'll hear like this no one caring about that customer or whatever the thing is that's wrong, but you get around guys like this and it becomes very contagious. That's why Stephen talked about this earlier. Who you surround yourself with is so important. These masterminds, getting in the right room with people that are equally aligned with one of bettering their life. Toxicity is everywhere. People that are gossiping, talking shit at the TV, like whatever, all that behavior. So these people don't just come knock on your door either. You have to go. You have to have a value exchange. You have to pay some sort of ticket price. Yeah, you have to offer value to the world, and be willing to really put yourself in a position to be able to absorb this type of energy. But again, these are one of these secrets that we're always looking for. I think it's kind of built in that story right there. But where you pull inspiration from, who you're surrounding yourself with, oftentimes that is a reflection of who you actually are.
Yeah. No,
and you are a reflection of your grandpa.
Thank you,
we got here,
appreciate that.
Right before this, you guys were talking about entitlements, and
yes,
and hearing earlier at the coaching group, Stephen, when you were talking about this, I'm not familiar like Eric and you are with the whole process, but I quickly got that it takes sort of a resilient, resourceful, patient, optimistic, problem-solving attitude to pull it off. Is that not
exactly what you said? I can't articulate it better. You nailed it. I should record it and put it on Instagram. That's exactly what it takes to get through that type of process. Yeah. You have to be firm when you need to be, but you have to be consistently optimistic.
Talk about the Vegas deal, because it's too good.
Explain entitlements. Like, I'm new to this context and as a wealth building opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's clear it takes these qualities. So for the listeners, what are they?
Sure.
And what's your example of it?
So I think the concept of entitlement is taking, from a real estate perspective, taking something from some type of zoning and re-entitling it to some higher use or better use value.
Sure.
So I'm going to take a piece of agriculture and get it zoned for industrial, because agriculture I get 10,000 an acre, and industrial I get 100,000 an acre.
Yeah.
So it's hard though, because there's always people fighting generally against entitlements, unless it's part of a city's master plan or whatever that someone's entitled 30 years ago and it's grandfathered in. So I'm not saying we're specialists, but we've had success with this in the past. The Las Vegas deal, Four Seasons, is a good example, where you have to be first off optimistic that you have to, because you're going to convince someone with the works for a city, so they work for the government.
Yeah.
You have to convince them that this is better than they or their predecessors have done in the past and decided on. And so maybe the plan's 30 years old, maybe the plan's 5 years old. Yeah. So you have to convince them. So you need optimism, you need excitement, you need like a visionary type attitude towards this. So that's number one. And second, you now are speaking to government. So government has very specific protocols. So you need to be deadly organized on your information, why you're doing it, how you're doing it, how it protects the 800 things in their checklist. Sure. Are you blocking views? Are you going to upset a neighbor?
Yeah.
Is it going to increase our tax base? How do we solve it from a fire and police perspective? Like there's all these things, depends on the nature.
How to make it better to them.
Yeah. Exactly.
You always want to show them why it's going to be better for them.
Why it meets their needs even better.
Oh yeah.
Exactly.
You got to craft that message and narrative. It's a game.
Oh, it's such a game. And you if you can have them where your dream becomes their dream, then they will find a way
That's
through
the alignment.
Exactly. So the very short version in Las Vegas, it took 2 years, but we collaborated. I'm not going to say convinced, because I do believe the Henderson City Council, to give them full credit, anyone randomly is listening to this podcast, I appreciate you for having the courage to listen to our crazy idea and allow us the ability to work through the problems together, not us. Some people force entitlements through because of precedent set and different things.
Yeah.
But that's where I feel like you're going to lose more often than you're going to win. I feel I'd rather collaborate towards a solution versus force something because someone did something else 20 years ago and you have a precedent. And then we collaborated together on a solution that worked for everyone. It worked for the neighbors, it worked for the city, it worked for us as a project. And it wasn't always easy. Sometimes, they wanted things that we couldn't do, and we wanted things that they couldn't do. But we always went in with being honest and high integrity, and for the idea that we're going to solve this together. And 2 years later,
and tell them why in Vegas in particular, this type of entitlement is unheard of, why it was so rare and non-existent, really.
Yeah. Okay. So Vegas, some entitlements are easy. Flipping from light industrial to commercial, is not that complicated.
No, right.
Flipping from multifamily residential to single family residential is not that complicated. Yeah. When you're taking residential and adding something like a high either density increase, like I'm taking this particular case, 21 single family lots to 171 units.
That's huge. Yeah.
It's a massive density change, and obviously, if approved, a massive value increase to that land. In the case of Las Vegas, the biggest issue is it's a valley. So when you've been to Las Vegas, when you stand on the Strip, you can, no matter what hotel room you're in, you have a perfect line of sight to the mountains because you're in a bowl, and there's a flat part of the bowl, and then you have mountains surrounding.
Right.
So you cannot build towers off Strip in Las Vegas because there's vista preservation laws. You can't block someone or cast a shadow into a whole bunch of homes by putting a tower in the middle of somewhere, unless it was previously zoned. So we thought.
So that would explain like the Red Rock Station or like little casinos that exist outside. Those are all
stories.
Part of the pre. Oh,
yeah. Well, sorry, no, you're right. Some of the ones actually have they're like a 10 or 15 story, but not necessarily. There's one I can't remember. It's just outside of Summerlin that has like 20 something.
But if
stories.
it wasn't part of that original city planner plan, there's no shot of this ever happening.
Exactly.
Yeah, so you can already see he's crafting a message. He's going to try to do something that's never been done before.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Some of those little cities had pieces carved off for a height entitlement.
Yeah, right.
From 30 years ago, so when a casino went there, they could actually build it.
Right.
I just can't go buy 20 acres of land and build a tower.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So we said, you know what? The problem we were trying to solve is people are moving to Las Vegas. They love Las Vegas, but they don't want to necessarily live in a single family home or condo because they don't want the maintenance or the yard work or anything else. They want to live in a luxury condo. But people that live in Las Vegas, generally speaking, don't want to live on the Strip. Yeah. That's where you go to hang and party, not where you necessarily go to live. And I'm generalizing, but just the average person.
Sure, you're right. Real problem.
Yeah. So it's we said, wouldn't it be amazing if the problem we could solve is to build towers off Strip? So you're 10, 15 minutes from the Strip, but you live in a luxury tower, the convenience that comes along with it, but then you can drive to the Strip and you have a golf course nearby or whatever the case is. So that was the problem. We found the solution. We found the perfect piece of land with the perfect partner and the perfect community. At least what we thought was perfect all, and ended up being perfect 2 years later. And
You just had to work through this impossible issue.
it's possible, 100,000 issues that we worked through over the course of 2 years. And at the end of the day, ultimately was approved because we solved every one of those issues that was ultimately required.
How'd you solve the view tower thing? You were
Because it's against the mountains. So we picked land specifically with our partner that owned the land.
It was nestled behind.
Yeah, it's BLM land behind and City of Henderson land behind, the two parts. So City of Henderson controls it, and the Bureau of Land Management. That nothing's ever going to be built there.
Sure.
So we solved the view corridor issue, which is probably the biggest issue, because as soon as you have one person complain you're blocking the view, they'll probably rally 100, and they'll just get it shut down. So we never had anyone saying you're blocking my view, because we weren't blocking any views.
It's impossible.
So, and there's not many pieces of land, not any, like this one, that there's mountains in the back that you can consolidate a piece of land this large. Yeah. So there's a lot of things working for us.
You will have views of the strip.
All 100.
That's going to be beautiful.
All 171. You go to the website. It's Four Seasons Las Vegas.
Yeah, and that's the other thing.
It's cool.
We can't skip right past that. Four Seasons, guys. Like
I
one
figured
of
out
those
how to
iconic.
Talk about collaborating.
I mean, when you talk about luxury brands, are one of the best brands in the world.
You must have solved a problem for Four Seasons.
So
it's just not out of nowhere.
Yeah, you don't just collab with Four Seasons on a project.
What problem are you solving for them?
So good. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's a neat thing, and it's, I think, fascinating from a Four Seasons business model perspective. But the problem Four Seasons is trying to solve is when they're in markets where they have only hotels and they don't have a residential attached to it. They want to provide a solution for their Four Seasons clients to live in their communities, not just vacation rent or hotel stay. So if you look at the Four Seasons portfolio globally, the majority of the new ones will have a residential component attached. So you'll have, let's say, 200 key hotel, then you'll have 30 residences attached. And the cool thing as a residence, you can live there or you can rent it back through their program. Four Seasons now said, wow, we are missing an opportunity. We're going to have standalone residential communities and markets where we can never bolt on residential to the existing hotel. So Las Vegas is a great example.
Oh, yeah, you can't add it on.
Yeah, so for those that don't know, Four Seasons Las Vegas is in the Mandalay Bay Hotel. They have a private entrance and pool, and they have the top 10 floors, and they have like 500 rooms there. But you can't build a residential component to an existing hotel. So Four Seasons had Las Vegas on their radar for what they call a standalone residential community for a long time. When we came on the radar, when this thing got entitled, they're like, holy cow,
so
you guys.
They were looking for the right opportunity, and then you guys pulled off the entitlement first?
Correct.
Or did you know Four Seasons was in your back pocket
No.
before you started the process?
No, we first started, it was going to be a privately branded,
that's
we were going to call
bold.
it Pinnacle Residences, we originally called it. Four Seasons started shopping us at like a couple months before
That's
entitlements.
amazing.
They heard the entitlement went through? Or?
They started shopping before knowing that this was coming.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you guys get this launch, we're interested.
Did you try to leverage that when you knew that information? Or was it too far gone? Was the deck already pitched and
It was.
already vetted out?
Yeah.
So this was just a crazy value add bonus. But
Insane.
I didn't know that part. I thought somehow, most likely, Four Seasons had some weight in the decision making of City Council and their vote, but they didn't even know that it was going to be a Four Seasons, which is just that cherry luxury name on top that in any city is going to be proud to put their name behind.
You know what? It's a neat thing about this, and I was getting in the minutia of this stuff, but Four Seasons wouldn't apply their name to something that has a chance of failing. That's why their brand is so strong. So even though they said, hey, we're interested, but you guys got to get this entitled on your own. Sure. And if you get it entitled, then we're interested.
So you got the land. Are you going to subordinate it there, or how's the relationship work between you and Four Seasons? Can you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's public. All these. So we got it entitled, and then Four Seasons said, okay, let's engage deeply. And they've been amazing to us. Like the executive there, I call some personal friends. They've been great mentors to us. They've helped our team work through it.
Are you going to develop it, or do they have their own team?
They don't have their own team. So how it works, but they have introduced us to another Four Seasons approved developer that we're partnering with.
Awesome.
So we get what we say are like, we now get the experience in the room that we don't have. We had the entitlement experience. We got the job done to this point, but we're not the right company to build the towers. So we're bringing in a company, which I can't say yet, but it will be out announced within the next probably 2 weeks.
Can you say if they're from Vegas?
No, they're not. Yeah, they're out of state, but they have they have relationships there, so they're excited to start the presence, and they're great. So it's like having I would say the grown-ups in the room, but like experienced people that build luxury towers across the country in one state in particular, and they know how to build it, and they know how to sell it, and market it, and close on for the client.
So how much money does Four Seasons bring to the table?
So that's the interesting thing. So here's which we'll bring to the, when we talk about our next endeavor, is that what we learned a lot working with Marriott Four Seasons. They don't own anything. Yeah. Literally zero. They got out of the ownership game a long time. Even the most recent global, well, I'd say global, but really American company was MGM, which has been pretty well documented the last 5 years. Right. But they announced that they're separating their gaming business and management from their real estate business, because they're two different business models. Real estate has a lower risk, lower cap rate, when management and gaming has higher risk, higher returns profile. Sure. You blend them together, you can't actually lever that from a public markets perspective the same. So I'm not even sure if Four Seasons ever owned. Marriott used to own a bunch of hotels. Apparently, I'm going to have the math wrong, so don't quote me. They have 100,000 hotels and they own 6 of them. Amazing. It's like
power of that name.
Power of the name. So what they said, and this is what they've been great coaching for us as we launch our new endeavor, is why own the real estate if you're really a management company. So Four Seasons, like, we are a management company. They know
what they're good at, right?
They know what they're good at. They
know where the margin's at.
They know where the margin's at, and they know what they're good at, so they stay in their lane. They're like, capital is, as much as we have access to lots of it, it's finite. We can't do $21 billion projects across there. There's actually a limit.
Stretch them a little bit thin.
Exactly. So what they
That's
do
probably
is
why the product is so good and the service is so good.
It is so good. And why they can scale and add, have 40 things going simultaneously globally, especially with this new standalone component where they're doing multiple. There's only 6 in the world now. We're the biggest, but there's many more.
Yeah, so will you own the towers, or how does that structure work?
Think of it just like a condo community. It's not, remember, take hotel to the mind. People are living there. Okay, just like any residential community. So we build it with obviously our partners come in. They're the ones that bring the big bucks to the table and the expertise, and they're rock stars in the space. We build out together. You sell it to 171 individual families, and the HOA is managed on like a 40-year deal. I can't remember the math. It's a multi-decade deal with Four Seasons, where Four Seasons runs the HOA and the entire community. And by doing that, Four Seasons it's all their own staff, it's all their own people, their own resources, their own branding.
Are you fully exited by the end of this? Should you be fully exited?
We will be fully exited. Yeah. There's nothing we retain.
So land's gone. Yeah, there's no other. Wow, what a cool project.
Yeah,
though.
So it's neat. Like it's a one-off component, which is the kind of the bummer of developing, buy, build, sell.
Sure.
Because I'd love to be a part owner in this,
yeah.
but there's actually nothing to rent to be long-term owner of. Eventually, our job is to sell 171, pass the keys to the owners, and Four Seasons.
Are you going to solve that problem elsewhere for them?
We are, I'll share with you guys offline, but I can't share about it. It's very, very exciting. We have one thing that could be the coolest thing I do in my life. I'm very excited. Yeah.
Really?
Congrats.
It's really amazing. It's a very early stage. I need 2 more years, but I'll share offline. It's pretty cool.
We'll keep our mouths shut. Cool. How many pre-sales do you have to get the dirt moving?
It varies, and it's a stage thing from every market's different, and we don't even have our numbers yet. It could be from 25 to 50% is kind of generally
sold any yet?
Sales. Oh no, I think we just passed 300 million in sales.
Crazy, good for you.
Things are rolling.
Do you run the sales team on that part too?
So our team right now, my JV partner is an amazing man and works his tail off right now. He actually is running the sales team on the ground because he lives in Las Vegas, and he is hustling and working hard. And it's great because he brings founder's passion to the buyers. He owns there. He's going to own there obviously once it's built. Now Earth is moving. We have the capital to do that, and then you have a financing component.
Oh, cool! So there is something happening.
Yeah, it's rolling. It's as fast as it can go right now.
Let's go out there.
And then and then we have a very professional kick-ass sales team, which is only going to be further elevated with the partnership we have with this new company. Mm-hmm. And then you have effectively an international sales team that's dedicated to selling this project out and growing it. Mm. But on our own networks and out of the gate in the Four Seasons push, we're already crossed right around 300 million, which is amazing. It's just a wild number.
Do you guys have is it all digital, or do you have like mock-up rooms that you can go walk?
We haven't done the mock-up rooms yet. We just finished our sales center, which is a show home. Otherwise, it's all phenomenal renderings and 3D models and everything else. But we were going to build the rooms, but it ended up being that we just found a better solution for the
if you don't need
show
to.
It off. Yeah, so no, it's cool. So for anyone who likes development, it's a great story, and obviously the story has many years to go to be a truly great story. And I'll report back to you in 3.5 years when it's done.
I'm right in there.
But Four Seasons, if you can work with a brand, if you're building a Marriott or a Hyatt or any sort of brand, it does add a tremendous amount of value, and you have to be prestige, and you have to be very organized. They're very sophisticated companies, and they're not going to take you on if A, you have a bad history, or B, you're just not organized.
It says a ton about you.
No, we're grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, what a gift you are, man, to be able to pull something like this together. But it does say a ton about you. Can you say the value of being able to pull that entitlement off, or was that something you want to keep close to home?
10x.
Yeah, it's
know it's huge.
It's big. Yeah, it's a big number, and obviously it's
high risk, high reward.
Exactly right. The concept of entitlements generally it's zero because whatever money you spend on entitlements is effectively sunk until you get the vote.
Yeah, right.
Your favor. So there's no way to get the engineering and renderings and everything back. So it's a high risk ring, and the reward is significant.
Yeah, time and capital is just put in and.
And you don't know what the end game is going to be,
and
oftentimes it comes back bad news.
And there's no hard asset entitlement. Now you may own the land, but if you're putting the engineering, the architecture, the renderings, the consultants, all that money spent and sunk that you will likely not be able to recoup if your dream is not approved by the city. So I can't say, and I appreciate asking, but it's something that's confidential. But let's just say that the returns are substantial. They're generally locked up though. Because it's kind of on paper until you ultimately sell out. So your time of activation of that or unlocking that comes years after once you're built out.
And that makes sense.
But the valuations, how they come back is you can just do the quick math. It was zoned for 21 homes, now zoned for 171.
Period.
You know, it's
that
six times.
That should give you a sense of what it is.
Yeah, 6 times more condos. Say 6 times.
Tell us that you've referenced a couple times the newest endeavor.
Sure. Yeah.
What is this? Yeah.
So I'm very excited about this. So how the business is structured now, it's taken us 7 years to get here. I was talking to a couple of your guys on the mastermind about this because this has probably been a neglected dimension before, but how we've structured it, like anything else, it's all about people. You can't do multiple great things unless you have great people in place to run those great things. And you need someone that lives, breathes, and eats that particular project and for their entire life. And when I talked about time being infinite, time is infinite only if you're passionate about it. And I'm passionate about lots of things, but eventually you become stretched and you're not doing a good job at anything. I learned this during that tough phase of my life, 2015, 2017, or 2018 rather. And as a result, I have surrounded myself with, in my mind, they're the best people in the world.
Does it take equity to find those types of people?
Sometimes, yeah. So in our case, one has equity.
Another powerful.
It's powerful. And they've had to earn it, earn the right to buy in because I'm, what's the way to put it? We're such a long game player of relationships. We never just bring in like a stud that's going to come in and kick ass. And I did do it once, and unfortunately, he's a good friend, but it failed.
High salary guy?
High salary guy that was going to make it rain, and it didn't happen. Yeah. And still a dear friend.
That blood-in connection is invaluable.
And it's when you have someone that, now again, I would never let someone buy into my family-held company unless I also felt I had a chance to date them for, in my mind, 3-4 years at a minimum.
Absolutely.
Because then I really know how they handle stress, how they handle my team, and can they deliver the same culture. So at the end of the day, where I stand now in the organization, there's the development side, which runs those projects in Italy. We have a leader in Italy who's non-equity, but he's basically like equity. He lives and breathes and eats. He's amazing. And then equity partner in the U.S. who runs it, reports to me. And then a soon-to-be equity partner in the Canadian office on the new endeavors. And now I'm limited down from at one point like 15 direct reports to 2 direct reports now.
Helpful, huh?
And I can, they leverage my time so I can add value to the projects in the way that are meaningful. Sure. And these are the ones that spend 80 hours a week.
Highest and best use for you.
Exactly
they're
right.
Just all in on that.
Yeah. So
as Dan Martell would say, you've bought your time back.
Well, I bought the time back, and the thing is, I just work more, but I'm actually doing stuff very productive for the organization than when before I was building spreadsheets, or whatever it could be, taking phone calls. Now the team has done a good job leveraging my time.
This is why you're growing.
It's why
we're
actually
figuring out how to keep putting you in a new place.
Exactly right. Exactly. So
we're not stuck. Yeah.
We're not, and I can build a relationship with, the mayor of a city that we're working with now by going golfing or spending time.
And that takes time.
And they know that I'm a good human being and I'm actually want good things, and we're going to give a lot back to charity, and we're going to hire local subs, and we're going to create economic impact. Otherwise, I'm just another developer rolling in hot.
Yeah, you jetted in today to do our podcast. You know what I mean? Like your ability to be able to move around like that is now someone that's really leading a beautiful organization.
No, thank you.
It's powerful. A lot of people, they are slaves inside their businesses, and it's cool when you're near someone that is really passionate about what they do. It's contagious.
No,
you can feel it.
And I've been a slave in the business, and I wasn't serving my investors to the degree that I'm serving them now because of that. And as a result, these changes have been very positive for us. So
what's a process?
I can't remember the basis of the question you said.
The newest endeavor.
Yeah. So as a result of that, because some people say, how do you do all of it? I just wanted to answer great people. Preferably if they could become a partner. I'm on the mindset now. I'd rather have 50 to 80% of something versus 100% of nothing. You only can do things together. Yeah. And so now we're bringing these partnerships together with the right people that I trust deeply, and they're going to represent our company's brand and our family's brand in a way that's directly aligned with mine.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
It takes a long time, but when you can do that, you can now activate multiple visions simultaneously.
Yeah. Well, yeah, even 50% of $1 billion is a hell of a lot better than 100% of 25 million.
Yeah, or 100% of nothing, which I've had
or
that
too.
Yeah.
But even in a wins case scenario, people's inability to see how to truly grow and expand because they're trying to hold on to everything.
Yeah.
And
there's reasons for it that people have. They want legacy for their kids. They want to make sure there's, and I get it. I've been through that. Just for us in this journey, this makes the most sense.
Sure.
So as a result of that, I've unfortunately been able to have time to do what I want to do. Is going to be the biggest thing, hopefully, I do in my life. And that is this shifting from the co-ownership model we spent kind of the first chunk talking about, which I'm very proud of. And anyone listening to this that wants to do this, there's companies they're out there. You can just rip off our playbook and go build it. It's a great business unit. So I'm not leaving it because it was a bad business unit. I wasn't making the impact I desired within this industry around providing people with familiar, consistent vacation experiences globally, because we were very limited to kind of this club model. Yeah. So we're now basically taking that model we built for 15 years and giving the world access. So we're going to be the first global portfolio of vacation homes. We don't own them, taking a page out of the playbook of Four Seasons and Marriott.
Wow.
We're actually not owning it. We're partnering with individual homeowners and developers and investors. They will own the assets in their name. We will be the brand for them. So Four Seasons is for us. And do management. And the concept that's unique, so again, there's plenty of rental companies out there, and to frame it out, Airbnb and VRBO aren't rental companies, they're distribution platforms.
Sure, yeah, it's technology, really.
They're technology companies, and they do a phenomenal job on distributing millions of vacation homes. Alternatively, there's lots of PMCs or property management companies. There's probably like Coeur d'Alene vacationrentals.com. I'm sure it exists,
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. There you go. So plenty of these regional mom and pop shops have built a really strong network locally, and they manage really nice portfolio homes. The difference we're going to apply is taking the hotel methodology and applying to vacation homes is when you go to a JW Marriott in Edmonton or a thing, you know what mattress you're sleeping on, you know how the coffee mug's going to look like, you know what the service is going to be, you know what your pillow is going to be like, all those things. Surprisingly, if you can believe it, there's not a single company in the world that has a global portfolio. There's some regional guys that do an okay job that where you can go to a place in Tuscany, a place in Cabo, a place in Hawaii all in the same month and get the same sleep, the same kitchen setup, the same technology. Yeah. And we're going to create that.
That's incredible. So are you going to use the existing crop of homes?
So that part of our sales process happening as we speak is anyone does not have an obligation, but if we would love our portfolio that wants to buy a home and then contribute it, or we sign a management agreement, they have the option to do so. So the answer is yes. Of these, by the time this airs, probably there'll be a number of properties that will help kick it off.
Come back in it.
Come back in, but it's a small percentage. We get 10 homes. We want to launch with 50. So it's
and you're selling these individually in the different markets.
So remember, yes, they were going to be sold to our network first. Going through that right now, and then they'll be out to MLS because our
fair market value.
Yeah, all fair market value. It's and our network includes outside. It's all arm's length. But we're not going to do MLS because the properties are filled right now. And then MLS, we want our clients to continue to enjoy their final stays until May of next year. Sure. So that's why the process is structured a certain way. But yes,
do you think they'll sell out just in-house like that?
I think, ask me on Saturday. It's a great question. Yeah. I think we'll get to half.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, which would be pretty cool. Maybe a little more. Yeah.
Man.
So
what's the goal? Your biggest property? I'm just curious.
Biggest property in that portfolio. We had 3 in our high-end one. We just finished closing up, and it was the highest value. That would be a little over $5 million. Yeah. So kind of $1 to $5 million is the average price point. And this portfolio
all the way back since 2007.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and we had because we started with a concept $1 to $2 million was our average. Yeah. Then we had an elevated portfolio, and we're trying to do with this new portfolio. Basically, there's really no floor or ceiling. The floor is going to have a certain standard that's required. You can get a great $700,000 condo in Palm Springs. That's kind of a cool, funky thing. Apply the Luxus brand to it. It's going to fit. Yeah. We might have a $7 million home as well, a state home, and it's going to fit.
But it'll be access to all the members.
Yeah. No members. No. Anyone here in this room.
Anyone.
Yeah. So taking the club out of it because the club environment is well serviced. There's good companies out there that have a very high barrier to entry. That was the old model. Yeah. So for the luxury clientele, the top 0.5%, 0.3%. They're pretty well serviced. There's clubs where you buy into a club, like where you were, and you get access to this curated portfolio with a familiar standard. Or you rent from places like Airbnb Lux, like their luxury platform, for $3,000 a night. We want to be able to serve the 90 to 99.5 percentile as the primary.
So I have a home. Could I give it to you guys? You manage it, you put it on brand.
Would love to.
Do you come in, change all the furniture, make it feel a certain way, or how far are you taking this?
Your brand.
Yeah, so the brand standard, great question. So yes, we'd love to have your home and see where it is. And it's what we do is we'll do a home audit and say, hey, you know what? Furniture's great. You know, you got to take down the personal pictures off the wall, or you have to change out the fridge because it's broken, not working. We do a kind of a base audit. And then we apply then our brand standard, which basically is linens, pillows, mattresses. If you have to have a minimum quality of mattress, if it meets it, otherwise our mattress brand.
Our mattresses are quality. I don't do unquality.
No, I believe yours is probably pretty damn
Even
good.
in the spare room that no one ever uses ever.
I love it. One of our number one thing in our brand is a great night's sleep.
Yeah,
you know, so you're committed.
Yeah.
And it's actually not that much. It's about, it ends on 25 to 40 grand for our brand standard package. It's 3 pallets of stuff that shows up to apply to, assuming the baseline of your furniture and your bedroom sets and your end tables and your things are set up to some standard. Yeah. This would be 40 grand. I'm just throwing a number. That'd be like a 4-bedroom home would be every dish, every fork, every spatula, every mattress, every TV.
It's important. Yeah. You know, it's kind of weird in someone else's home.
And very cool to share.
Close to home for me.
As an example too, and I can't share the name yet, unfortunately, but we're just signed on with someone will be able to guess it 1/3 of the time, but one of the big 3 electronics manufacturers in the world. We just signed on to be their first global pilot project to bring hotel tech into vacation homes. So think if you go to a hotel room, you get pre-release movies. It says "Welcome Rock Family." Here's your itinerary. And it does not exist in the world in a vacation home. And the first place it's going to exist in the world is in a Luxus property.
So exciting.
So there's so many cool.
What is your guys' cut on that?
Same on like dishware, like a Williams-Sonoma dishware.
Yeah. So we're in the process of choosing all the kitchenware stuff now as we speak as well. And so it's not all about ultra luxury. It's like comfortable luxury quality. You don't want to have like fine china.
I get that. Totally get that.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, fine china is awkward.
Yeah, it's awkward.
It's got, it's got to have a feel that has longevity attached to it. You can wear well. It's timeless feels.
Easy to replace because if
I going to rent the house out more with you guys than I would on VRBO or Airbnb? Give me the full upside of this.
So we would say, and usually we ask people back to say, first off, we're pre-revenue as relates to this, so we can't guarantee anything. But if you put 100 people in a room and you said, and we have a property that's identical, literally the exact same builder, same thing, and furnished the same. And this is owned by Joe and Jane Smith, and they do it themselves by renting through Airbnb or a local property management company. Or you get the Luxus standard, where you know exactly how you're going to sleep, what's in the kitchen, what the TV is going to be. 100 out of 100 times they'll choose Luxus before they'll choose Joe and Jane Smith.
Yeah, but is your marketing going to get a customer, that good quality customer you want, in front of them over or equal to?
So
can you market where Airbnb does? Can you market the same places that VRBO does somehow?
So here's the neat thing is Airbnb and VRBO. So how we're going to have is LuxusVP.com, which is our going to be the main platform, but we only have thousands of people that know about us, not tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands. So the marketing is 2 components. One thing I'm going to talk to you guys both about after, which is very cool, but effectively this incredible, phenomenal ambassador group that we're building across North America that ends up participating in the brand, and I'll explain that to you guys privately. But this is going to allow us open some incredible circles of people to explain the guest experience that is different than anything else that exists out there. The second thing, though, from a marketing perspective, is that how Airbnb and VRBO work is they have what they call professional hosts, people that are actually run their own website, CoeurLaneRentals.com. So I guarantee it happens. And they have CoeurLaneRentals.com, which 50 people know about. And then the rest of their business, they take and they click a button and it goes on VRBO and Airbnb. And then someone looks at a property in Airbnb, VRBO, and they don't know the difference between Joe and Jane's house or Luxus house. So we get equal priority. Now there's apparently pay-per-click and Airbnb. Some things are launching to elevate you, but let's just say it's equal. So we're going to get, if there's 2 of us, we'll get 50% of the business, all things being equal. That client now is paid to come to our property. They now get a call from a professional host because we have a whole concierge team. Not getting a call from Jane, hey, do you want groceries or whatever? They get professional. So we service the heck out of them. They show up to our home. They're like, this is incredible. I never had the best night's sleep of my life. And I had a full Thanksgiving dinner and I had all the spatula and the turkey baster. And they see on Luxus thing. And then they actually, we're not there to solicit them, but the client will see ultimately that we have our own booking platform and will come to us. And Airbnb and VRBO know this. This happens every day because they're a volume game. They know that there's small property management companies, and we're like a drop in the bucket.
So they let you put them on there basically
because they want the volume, and they know that we're effectively competing.
And are you giving up some percentage of margin to
Correct.
when it's booked through them, obviously?
Correct. Exactly.
So will your margins go up if it's booked directly through the
Correct.
website?
And
But it's okay for you. You're happy with it.
But you're going to gradually acquire a client base.
That's our goal. So the ideal goal is they come through and they're like, wow, that was the best experience
And
of my
once
life.
someone knows, that'll be sticky and contagious.
That's
That'll
the
work.
idea. Sticky is such a great word. Is okay. What else? Oh, they have 50 other properties. Let's go to Cabo Honey.
Right. That was such a good experience that we got to see what else they do. Yeah,
and we'll make it, as many fellow guys we know, Alex Hermosi, others, Andy Frisella, the product will be, and I can say with full confidence, undeniably better than anything else out there.
How close are you launching?
2 months. Yeah.
Oh,
so
close.
yeah. We've been working on it for 2 years. Like we've spent
How many properties you got?
We'll probably launch we're going to have 3 phases, about 15 properties per phase, where our formal launch is kind of a pilot over the next couple of months, a phase 1 soft launch and a phase 2 main launch, March basically. And then we'll probably be at 34.
Where are some of the highlighted properties at?
We've got so many cool ones. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, they're all within individually home communities, but we've got every Hawaiian island covered. We've got 3 deserts from Vegas, Phoenix, and Coeur d'Alene, Cabo San Lucas, Costa Rica, Tuscany, Turks and Caicos, Florida Panhandle, San Diego, and then a whole bunch of ski properties in Western Canada and Park City. So it's it will be, the neat thing is when you travel, like let's say you book a family trip to Hawaii, you're gonna be like, oh, they actually have something in Park City. Let's book there, and it's gonna be we'll be at scale quickly.
Yeah, we're going to Bali. You got anything in Bali?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's gonna grow quickly because again, we don't have to acquire them. We have to convince a homeowner to say that, oh my gosh, this
arbitrage.
So that's my last question: is the homeowner, will they get somehow? I'm assuming because this is a cost of doing this that it has to be absorbed somewhere. I don't know how much more they can charge, but do they end up getting more because there's more volume at some point? That person that really wants to rent the hell out of that home and get as much cash flow as humanly possible.
So think of what a homeowner's choices are, and it's a great question. Just to frame it out, their choices are do it themselves. So they manage it themselves and they list it on Airbnb.
Sure.
So the DIY model. So they don't. Let's say
how much do they take there?
They take basically 17%. It's 3% from the homeowner, and they charge the guest 14%. VRBO is, I'll be off. It's like 12 points or something like that, and they just take off the host. So I'll be up. Let's just say it's low teens. Is effectively the cost to acquire that client 17% for a thing. But again, the renter pays 14%, the host pays 3%, but the combined is 17%. So you have a $100 transaction. You're really putting at the end of the day $83 in your bank when you consider the 14% that Airbnb is charging. It's a little complicated how they do it because they don't charge the host; they charge the renter a portion as well. But it's effectively cost of getting that client. So then you have to manage everything yourself. At that point, let's assume you're too busy, you don't want to do it. So the next option is CoeurD'AleneRentals.com. They'll have a local property manager and they'll take care of it for you. All they're going to do is put it on their website and do the exact same thing you're going to do, put on Airbnb and VRBO. There's no magic sauce to them. And they're very unsophisticated as an average, a general law. But now they service the vacation, they show up to the property, there's a leaky pipe, they take the phone call, not you, and they charge you a fee. That now moves you from it's called mid-teens to 30% as an overall fee.
Yeah, I was going to say I owned a Seasons unit out at Sandpoint.
Yeah.
It's on the
water.
water.
Yeah, Seasons, yeah.
And you know Cliff, the developer?
No,
Cliff,
I don't know.
Cliff
I have a friend that owns one.
He's a good dude.
Oh, good dude. Yeah,
really
sweet.
good guy.
What do they charge?
30%.
Yeah, so there you go. So then they look after it. So that's pretty standard, 30%. Ours are going to range between 25 and 35%, depending on the market. We're going to average probably 2 or 3 points higher than the average because we provide a significantly higher degree of service for both the homeowner and also the guest, and we have to recoup that cost. So when we say that, let's say that Seasons is 30% and Luxus is 33%, just pick a number. Can we basically get 3% more for you? And the question always goes back as well, will we occupy it more? Because people are going to choose a Luxus home, like a repeat client more frequently than going back to Joe and Jane's. And can we charge 3% more to the client? Like, would you guys pay more for consistency?
Yeah. Sure.
All day long, right?
Of course.
Now, would you pay 5%, 10%, 15%? Like, that's the.
And I'm weirded out by weird things.
Yeah, he's your ideal market.
Oh, God. I always pay more for convenience and for something
his temperament
that's fresh and, nothing weird.
You should see the cool things we're putting in. It's like, it's fresh, clean, sanitized, but some of the neat features we have is that we believe our thesis, we're saying 5 to 8% more. The market's suggesting 10 to 20% more we can charge when we're at scale. We're telling homeowners, let's assume we can't get $1 more, but we're going to get 3% more occupancy. You're now equal
there you go.
on what the extra fees. We're not charging double or some exorbitant amount. We're very efficient on managing assets remotely, and we have a good system in place. So very cool thing. As an example, one more brand we're partnering with is Dyson. Everyone knows Dyson for like the vacuums. They also have best in class leading technology for air purifying systems. They're going to go to all the homes. Cool. And then I don't know if your wives use like the Dyson Supersonic. It's like a $500 hair utensil, like 3-in-1. It's like he's giving the nod, the camera, and exactly. My wife is completely obsessed and addicted to it. Yeah. And she's like, if you put this in.
You don't have to pack that in your bag. Yeah.
Every home's going to have one. I promise you, women will say, I will pay 10% more just so I don't have to pack it.
Here's what I think's big is like in the kitchen, some sort of welcome basket with like goodies. Like I love going in the wind. I can't help myself because anytime I'm in Vegas, I'm already cheating. It's a cheat day. I love gummy worms and gummy bears. I literally crush that little thing where you pull it off and it charges you like automatically. I love that. But I don't know. To me, that's so helpful if you've been traveling all day, you're starving. Oftentimes you finally get there, just to have something to snack on that's right there. You know what I mean? I don't know.
We're going to have a tiered loyalty program with the top tier people that spend are going to have these little gifts and welcome gifts, fully stocked coffee bar, olive oil, spice, all these things so that you don't have to start from scratch every single time.
That's so good.
And like we're working with 2 separate coffee companies, not coffee bean companies, like the craft
Espresso.
company. They're ones that do drip coffee, but in a grinded fashion, like Mocha Master and such.
Good coffee.
And allow for good coffee. Then work with a local. Well, that place I went to today would be perfect. A local company that does locally roasted beans, and they would be the supplier of the coffee included for your stay.
Good coffee is good.
So I could, this part of and I can't take up your whole podcast on it, but I am so excited. Anyone listening, follow luxusvp.com in about 2 months from now. We're ready to launch. And if you're a homeowner that has a vacation home that you want to rent, but you want professional management, and there's also we do an exchange program. Like if you have your home in the portfolio and you want to exchange it, and you want to go to Italy for a week, you can exchange it with other people that participate in the exchange program, which is also unique to this type of model. Awesome. So a great carrot and an extra advantage. But I am
Do you think this goes public one day?
We've talked about it where we set up the company that it could. But the advice from my mentors, and I mentioned one earlier today, I don't want to say his name for the sake of just the privacy with him, but he's ran a large publicly traded company and had a very significant exit recently with a privately held company. In his words, it was just so much more joyful running a private company and exiting the public space. And speaking to me, I can't even do a post on Instagram, let alone going in front of like CNBC to like talk about the quarterly results.
No, I get it.
Yeah. So I think not, but if that is the ultimate best exit for the investors of the time, I'm not opposed to it. Just what I think what's going to happen, the trajectory is likely private equity and then an exit to like a hotel group or something like that in a decade. I'm into this for the next 10 years. At least 5 to 7 before we probably do our first private equity. And then at that point, I'd like to go another run and really see how big we can make it because that's millions of people's lives that we can help them provide. And I don't say this to the point of like, this is a marketing slogan. We've been fortunate to serve tens of thousands of vacations for our existing group, giving them better travel. And I know the health benefits of better travel. I know the joy it creates, the memories it creates. It is to be the provider of that is one of the great joys and lucky things in my life. If I can do that instead of 400 people, I could do it with 4 million people.
Yeah, it traces right back to your original inspiration with your wife. Our joy is to travel. We have young people.
Yeah, he built.
How do we do this in the most beautiful, gratifying? Like how to make it work in life.
Yeah, he's working in the space that inspires him.
Yeah, and if these people can travel to our homes and be proud of them and be like, I had the best vacation ever. Like literally, if that's the only thing I do the rest of my life, I would be happy.
Once people reach a certain price point, like that, I think you said like the 90 to 99%. That demographic. This is exactly what they want.
Yeah, they're kind of a $500 a night to $2,000 a night spend. Yeah. It's they're very underserved in the current space, and we're going to serve them well. Yeah. No, thanks for asking though. I'm very excited about this. Yeah,
it'll be fun to watch it.
Thank you.
The audience clearly sees what doers actually look like. Like this is a doer.
No, we do.
I love being around it. I love being around people that do stuff. I mean, it's because of these people that I surround myself with that inadvertently get me doing scary stuff, jumping out there.
Yes.
One last point. I know we're coming up to our end here, but you talked about one of your most important points that you made earlier today was the importance of great mentorship, being in the right room, being around
peer
coaches.
Group, mentor.
Maybe just touch on that for our audience listening about that importance, because I think it's one of the most underrated thing that exists on your journey to success. Is so many people out there, the masses out there, they very rarely make investments in themselves when it comes to this space. And it's almost arrogance to think that you don't need a coach or a mentor in life, that you're not one, but there always is a ticket price. And that's where it comes like, I want it till it costs money. But when you think about the greatest athletes in the world, the greatest people in the world that are doing life at the highest levels, when you get beneath the surface, they all have coaches, and they have them for specific things, actually. People get really detailed. They need someone holding accountable, being a mirror to them, and really pushing them into the scary things. And most organic relationships, they don't do that. They actually suck you backwards. And there's a place for it. They want you to go drink and go boating and have fun, which is all great. But you need to purposely put yourself in a situation where people are pushing you into the scary, the unknown, the dark, holding your hand through the stressful, the trying times. But they do it with a unique lens. So getting in the right room, maybe just cap this off with how important this is, because I loved your points that you made today to our group.
No, I'm very convicted on this related to the concept of peer group, coach, and mentor as 3 separate buckets of resources you can pull on for business, family, and personal life. And I've deliberately, someone told me this, by the way, it's not my own coined term. Someone told me this 10, 12 years ago, and it's stuck with me over the time. And I've been very intentional about the difference between each 3. Sometimes they blend them all into one and think they're getting the same thing, but you're getting a diluted version if you think that you're getting coaching from a mentor or you're getting a mentorship from your peer group. So I'll just explain the 3. Peer group. So first off, what you guys are doing with your mastermind's phenomenal. To spend time with them today, I can tell they're all like lifting each other up.
Amazing?
Amazing energy. Like it was ridiculously fun.
Solid group.
Such a good group from local business owners, and they crush. So that would be a good example of peer group. And I define a peer group as someone that they have to be in similar ages and stages of life. Doesn't mean that someone can't be 25 and someone can't be 55.
Sure.
But your stage of your career, maybe that you're on a trajectory up, or maybe you're all. Sometimes a peer group now is you're all retired and you want to share different experiences. So you pick a peer group that is going to elevate you, assuming that's what you want in this point of life. And there's lots of ways to get it. There's groups like yourselves, which is phenomenal in your particular city. A global one that's a very good one is Entrepreneurs Organization, so EO, phenomenal. Almost every major city has one. There's like 6,000 members or something like that. I did EO for 10 years, and my forum mates, we call them forum. There's a 10-person forum group. They were my brothers, and we had, and their brothers and sisters that when I had a tough time, that was the one group I could go to, and I could share my difficult moments and not be judged and not be shamed upon and not be told a bunch of advice that I might get defensive about. There's very specific rules around EO and how they do it. So you want to be around people that you can celebrate with and also share your hardships with, and ultimately you lift each other up. So that's number 1.
Exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, and you guys are doing it 100%. Anyone in Coeur d'Alene that's not in this group that should be, I'm telling you right now, shameless plug, be in this group. I can tell, I want to be in that energy in that room. It's freaking awesome.
Every Thursday we get a hit of this.
Yeah, I know, you should. It's amazing. Really Next summer I'm coming more, by the way. I'm inviting myself to be a student.
Done.
Yeah, okay,
awesome. You're in, brother.
I appreciate it. The second one would be coach. So coach is different than a mentor. People get these confused often. Coach is someone that doesn't have to be a global entrepreneur. They could be just a designated coach that they've been educated on coaching. They don't have to be an expert in your business. Their job is not to be an expert in your business. Their job is to be an expert on holding you accountable to what your dreams are within your business or your life. And the problem with coaching is it has gotten a little diluted in terms of how easy it is to get a quote unquote certificate. And I'm not saying they're bad people, but they may have less experience of helping people. But that's okay too. When I launched with my coach, who I was with 7 years, she was early stage as well. But I'm like, you know what? I don't have a lot of money to spend on a coach right now. I like her. We have core alignment fit. We're both starting a family. I kind of felt they would have some similarly aligned experiences. And I liked the discipline she had on me as related. And she wasn't in the same town. We did it all virtual. The discipline she had on me on, they structure your goals. They make sure you write it down. Like you're super organized. They take control of that. And then they'll say, hey, we talked about a goal 3 months ago. You were going to, lose 10 pounds. How's that going? Oh man, I guess the work was really busy, and their job's not to be like, I know life gets busy. That kind of sucks. They're like, what the fuck? Why did you not you made a commitment. You didn't follow through. How are we going to restructure the next 3 months? And then they'll take you through practices to restructure the next 3 months. So I lose those 10 pounds. Or I do this with my business, or I hire or fire this person, or whatever it may be. Yeah. And the thing with, you can't complain to a coach because their job is to extract the best out of you and then give you guidance as it relates to what the next steps are. Not telling you how to do it. Yeah. It's just telling you the tools in which it can help you achieve your goals. So coach important, and the mentor is the fun one, because mentor is someone who's lived it. So if I am a mentor and I'm looking, and I've been fortunate to have many, my dad being one, and my mom and my dad, I can still go to them anytime for advice, both for life and for personal stuff and for business.
I go to my dad too.
And for blessed for sure. And I think of my wife as being, at the end of the day, she's the ultimate of all the above. You know, she knows when she needs to be a coach, a partner, and a mentor for me. So, I mean, if you're fortunate enough, like I am, to have an incredible wife that we do business together, leverage the heck out of that because it's phenomenal. Now, typical mentor is you want to be intentional, and you probably aren't going to be with the mentor deliberately, consistently for many, many years in a row, because your idea of a mentor is to extract the experience of their life out of them. So what I would go to a mentor is say, hey, Joe, you're in the real estate business. I'd love to pick your brain. I want to buy you lunch. I don't want your capital. I don't want your connections. I just really want to hear how you manage this as I'm struggling, or I'm just curious. And then Joe says, well, that sounds pretty amazing. I like giving advice. Generally there's someone have some wisdom. They've been around the block a few times, and then they share. And I remember my first mentor was like, yeah, I'm on my third marriage. Totally on me. I screwed up the first. Whatever you used to do, Steve, don't do this. Don't overwork your marriage to what. I'm like, I'm working too. I got to pay attention. He goes, I would do it differently if. He's not going to say giving advice. He's telling you through his experiences, his lens. Yeah. And then my mentors have changed as my corporate and career goals and life goals have changed. Naturally. So then you try to pick someone at a different stage in life. So if you can do all three.
So theoretically, a coach could stick around longer than a mentor.
Correct.
If you're extracting everything you need at this place to your life from the mentor, a coach, someone that can work through the stages with you if they're good at what they do.
Exactly right. A coach could be with you, frankly, forever. Yeah. There's really no limit as long as they're continuing to have you have a vibe.
I would love to be with Ed Mylett for life.
Yeah,
there's a guy. Not a cheap mentorship, but
for sure
it's expensive, but God, it's worth it.
No, when you're investing that type of dollars with Ed, he's giving you the absolute very best this planet has to offer. But my person was $150 a month to start. And you mentioned earlier, Eric, but it's so important. If someone says, Steve, I got $50,000 to invest, what should I invest it in? I'm like, so do you have you have $50,000 in addition to lots of money, or I only have $50,000?
That's it.
Only $50,000. The only thing you invested on is yourself. If you have $1 million and you're carving off $50,000 for an investment, that's one thing. But if you have $50,000 to invest, I would never ever take that person's money. And if you're a capital raiser, you shouldn't take their money either, because they don't have enough to lose to invest with you. So I'm just that's the ethical thing to do is to turn it down. Yeah. But my recommendation to them would be and I'm in a position now that I could share this and say, spend it on yourself. Yeah. Join a mastermind. Hire a coach. Choose a mentor and buy them lunch for 6 months in a row. Do only that for 6 months, and your $50,000 will be worth $500,000.
Yeah.
If you take $50,000 with me,
the power of proximity.
Oh God, it's the only thing. It's here proximity to these people, and so I ask everyone listening, if you're in the space, write those 3 things down. Do what I said. Search out the right mentor group. Right mentor. Search out a great coach. And coaching is their hired gun. So you can interview them, you can fire them. Don't feel a personal obligation to be their support network. Their job is you're paying them to be your person. And if you don't feel the vibe with them, don't hire them. I asked a bunch of friends, and I interviewed 3, and I chose 1. And that's kind of how I went through it. And then obviously with the peer group as well, is there's lots of EO's great. YPO is Young Presidents Organization, which is if you don't have to be an entrepreneur, but you can be like a C-suite executive and be in it. That's one other good group. And then obviously lots of local masterminds. So hope that helps.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, no, that's made the best advice I could ever give. It's changed my life.
These are effortless conversations. Stephen, thank you so much for flying all the way down to Coeur d'Alene and spending this day with us.
It's easy to be here. I'm Ida home, as they say. I love it here. You guys rock.
Where can we send people if they're interested in maybe investing with you, if they're learning more about you? Where can they connect with you, follow your journey? Even though I know you're not big on social, which is maybe something time in the future that'll change though as you enter the next chapter of your life, because you offer a lot of value for sure. You have a ton to give, and you already do give a ton.
But you inspire me with that, my friend.
It's a unique tool.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, that was the gift of Ed and getting around those type of people. Is that's probably the reason I'm here on this microphone right now.
No, you're doing it. Yeah. Well, you know what? You can follow me on social media, LinkedIn. Again, I apologize. I Like I will not inspire you on social, but it is a mechanism to connect. So
It is.
Stephen Petasky, Stephen with a PH, same on Instagram. Follow me. There are followers on there, and eventually I may start doing something. So it's a chance to get a hold. But if you want to support me or be a part, there's two things. One is travel better, and when we launch, come travel with us. Like it will be undeniably better, and that will be a 2024 thing. But if you want to take great vacations, remember Luxus, LUXUSVP.com. It's not launched yet. Right now we're Luxus Group, but Luxus VP, Luxus Vacation Properties. Just travel better. Like you can support me by just having a better experience for travel.
Is that your hashtag or like your little phrase?
We're still working on all the marketing components to it. Yeah, but probably hashtag Luxus VP. Right now,
travel better.
Yeah, exactly. We have some fun things in the works. The second thing is my final shameless plug is that we do have this fishing lodge in Northern Canada.
Yes.
I know, Eric, you brought up earlier.
Yeah.
If you like the
I just
fishing, the
followed them.
outdoors, I followed it. So ENA Lake Lodge, ENA Lake Lodge. I would ask if you are going to choose something instead of going salmon fishing or Alaska. It's one of the best fishing clubs in North America. And this isn't a moneymaker. This is purely a passion project because I love the adventure of exploring new parts of the world. And go there. And then you know what? That would create proximity to me and my
just
family.
having dinner out in Black Rock with some heavy hitters, and I'm sitting at a table. I think it's okay to say who it is. It's Cliff Finley, a legend in this community. He is. Cliff's a great guy. He's a wonderful family, and he's telling me about this amazing fishing lodge he just got back from, literally the day before. And I don't know, and I knew Stephen had one, and he just said Canada, and I said, it wasn't Lake Eno, was it? And he looked at me like I was crazy. How'd you know about that? Of all the lakes in the world, I guessed the one lake, and it's just because it's probably the only lake I knew of that's a fishing lodge. I'd been to one in Sitka, but anyway, I guessed it in Canada, and man, he just opened up all the pictures and just raved about it all night. So what a gift, man. That was cool.
Thank you. Well, listen, thanks for allowing me to share that. It's this has been amazing, guys. Thank you guys for doing what you guys do. You guys rock.
Sir.
Appreciate you, brother. That was fun.
Ciao.
I'm a man on a mission. I'm a man on a mission.